Welcome back to another episode of The Parenting Life. I'm your host, Kayla New York. Today is Matthew's birthday. Today, Matthew completed 25 years on this planet, or on this in this game. He's completed the 25th level. That level, I know, and it's crazy. I'm happy, I'm happy that I'm recording this and not videotaping it. So if I start crying, no one will see it. But anyway, you'll definitely hear it because you hear me crying and shit. But yeah, he got to the 25th level. Not got to, but he completed the 25th level of this game. And it's just like, I watched this level. This level was hard for him. It was hard. It was hard. And I was watching him. I could feel, oh my God, as a parent, it's so hard to know you have the means to do it and just fix it for him and just wipe it out or do whatever. And you can't. Your spirits are like, no, he has to be able to pull himself out of the quicksand. He has to learn how to pull himself out. And I'm watching him and I'm just like, and I already pulled myself out of the quicksand. So I'm looking at him and I'm watching him struggle and watch him grab branches that he thought was solid and it broke because it wasn't quite the right branch. And it was just watching him just grow up. Like, it's weird. He's the first. So for me, he's still the first of everything. Like, watching him grow up, and be your first kid to grow up. And it's like, I feel bad because he's always the blueprint. He's always like the test subject for the rest of the other two, because it's just like the things that I knew didn't work with him, I don't do with my other two, because it makes no sense. If it didn't work with this one, you could probably tweak it and it work. Nope, it don't work. So you just don't use it. But he's an adult. Like I told you before, you don't become an adult until you enter your 26th cycle. When you cross that line from 25 to 26, it's a whole different level. I had him at 26. I was 26 years old when I had him. It was wild. I was 26 when I had him. Dude, I didn't know what the fuck I was going to do. And the husband I had at the time, he got sick. He got very sick, like hospital sick, while I was pregnant with Matthew. And it was rough. It was rough. So this kid, like, all he knows is adversity and overcoming and conquering stuff, because that's all I did while I was pregnant with him. It was overcoming this, overcoming that, trying to build a family when you don't even know what a family or a healthy family looks like. People getting angry around you. It was so much stuff. To see him now do his best to be level-headed and do his best to always be not the nice guy, but the guy who's like, hey, the cool guy, like, hey, yeah, his Mr. Not Nice Guy. I hate that dude. Like, when he already has that disciplinarian, like, he gets it from me. But I know, and his grandfather, because his grandfather raised him for a good part of his life. So he has like that grant discipline. Like, there's a discipline that we had was like, even though it didn't activate very fast or at times, but there's a grant discipline when my parents train you. Like, it's different. I am a lot more lenient than my parents. My parents, they're from Panama. They weren't American and they happen to be Panamanian. No, I'm the first generation Americans for my family. And we are vastly different than our parents. And my parents were kids. Like I have forgiven my parents, especially for the stuff that went on when we were kids, because they were kids. My dad, I think he was like 20 when he had me, and he already had my sister. My sister was already born. She was 3 years older than me. Is 3 years older. And it's just like my mom, I think she was like 16 when she had my sister. In that era, it was like it happened. You didn't want it to happen. But the crazy part is the era before that, kids were having babies at like 13. Granted, the man was like 45, which was fucking gross. But the man was like 45. At least that's what the story they tell us. But yeah, so it's like now it's gotten, people are having, what I see is that people are having children later. Like I was old compared to like my parents when they had kids. I was considered like, oh my God, are you going to have a baby? Like, oh my God, are you going to be a mom? They put that pressure on you. But I was 26 and I was just like, yeah, I always wanted to be a mom because I knew I was going to be a good one. So it's just like, I was like, yeah. So I had up 26. Yeah, I was considered old. Like I knew girls who got pregnant in high school, and it was just like, nah. But my parents, my mother, that's all she kept saying over and over again to me. She was like, don't get pregnant. I was like, I think that's why I have a phobia about sex now. I'm like, yo, I'm not even doing anything to do this. Please stop. And that's why I don't do it to my boys. I don't do that to them. I just tell them, make good choices and don't bring no babies to this house. That's it. You guys aren't ready for it. And the funny thing is, except for Dylan, they've each taken care of each other. So they don't want any children right now. They don't want any children like at this very moment because they're like, nah, we know what it takes to take care of kids. So we're not going to just jump right into it. But plus I need a bigger boat. I need like an aircraft carrier. But yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. Like I told you, my first husband got sick, so I had to go on welfare. I've been on welfare twice, and there is no freaking stigma on welfare. And it's like, it took me a minute when I had Matthew to get WIC or to like apply for assistance, because I felt like there was a stigma behind it. I felt like, oh, you're not a good person and all that. And none of that is true. That's what they take that shit out my taxes for, my paycheck rather, in taxes for. I'm paying for that. So if I wanted to go to people who need it, because I needed it. I remember, I forgot who I was talking to. I probably don't talk to them now, but it's like, they were like, this is what it's for. Because I was like, oh, this is crazy. Husband was sick, couldn't work. I was pregnant, all this other stuff. And it was just like, this is what it's for. Go get it. So I wobbled myself over there and I got it, And the funny thing is, I've heard stories from people that are like, yeah, they give you a bunch of money and you be balling out and all that other stuff. Bitch, I got just enough to like, this is why I don't do bad stuff. Because God is going to make an example out of me. I can't do what other people do. Other people were getting like thousands of dollars and they only had one kid. Me, nah, I got just enough food credit for food, and I got just enough credit for like cash and stuff, because they're two different things. And I got just enough to be okay and to be comfortable. It was like, God was like, don't give her all of it because she won't get off of it. And that's for me. That's no judgment on anybody else. But for me, that I think that's why that happened. Because both times, that's what happened. I got just enough. And I didn't know why. I was like, yo, people be saying they're getting a whole bunch of stuff. Nope. Just enough to sustain my family by myself. And that's the thing. But damn, maybe, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Because it was just enough, because there was always a man in the household. Thank God it wasn't like back in the days, because I heard back in the days when my parents were growing up, if there was a man in the household, you didn't get public assistance. And I remember some movie they were watching where the guy jumped out the window or ran out when the social worker came because he wasn't supposed to be in the house. So it's like, but I had men in the house. I absolutely had men in the house, and I still had, they couldn't function. They couldn't do it. And it's like, I had to find a way to make it happen. Because what were we going to do? Starve? I got to step up. That's why a lot of times when I hear men go, I don't like masculine women. Sometimes the majority of us had to be masculine, because right now I'm walking in my feminine. Like, I'm walking in it. And I realize feminine isn't completely helpless. It's a balance between the masculine. You can't go too far masculine. You can't go too far feminine. You got to stay right in the middle and play around with that. When you need to turn up the testosterone and the male energy, you pull that up. When you have to turn up the feminine energy, you do that. And I've learned that it's a balance. But yeah, I was on welfare twice, and and it was funny because I was on welfare twice and I was married twice. This is what I'm telling you. I swear to God, I married the same guy. There's no fucking way I didn't marry the same guy. I married the same guy. I married because it was just like, the first one was sick, went through it with him, helped him, went to hospitals, making decisions, running back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it's like, he did give me his ass to kiss. He was very, very rude, which was crazy, but I digress. But yeah, so I was just like, yo, you don't love, I've done all this stuff. You were like really messed up, and it's my story. And it's weird how I think I've reached a point where, since Matthew is an adult now, I can actually start speaking about what happened, because a lot happened, and there's a reason why, he's as strong as he is. There's a reason why I'm as strong as I am, and I'm as driven as I am. There's reasons why we're like this. And not to sound like the fucking cliche weirdo, but if I can help someone who is going through, about to go through, or went through something that I've gone through, because I've been through a lot. I've been through a lot, and especially as a parent. As a parent, that was one of the most constant things in my life, which was being a parent. I had to keep him alive. He was like, that was what went through my head when he came out. The funny thing is, funny story, true story, Matthew was late. And everybody who knows Matthew knows that Matthew, to him, he's never late. He gets there when he gets there. He's on his own time. He does things when he wants to do it. He is not going to do it before you make him do it. And I used to think that he got that from his dad, from his father. He did not. He got that from me. I am the most willful person I know. If I do not want to do it, I'm not doing that. If I'm like, but what I keep trying to teach him is, you are not in a relationship by yourself. There's other people involved. So Matthew was supposed to be born on November 10th. That's when he was supposed to be born. He was supposed to be born on the 10th. Matthew was born on the 13th. I remember the day before, on the 12th, I was like, I don't want to be pregnant anymore. When is this kid going to come out? And I'm happy I didn't. My doctor was very funny. His name was Dr. Falk, F-O-K. No, it wasn't him. It was another doctor. I forgot his name. I forgot it. Kim. Dr. Kim. He was a very stoic, Korean man. He wasn't friendly. He was just like, this is what you need to do. This is how you do it, and move on. And I was like, yes, sir. So he was my doctor for Matthew, and he never asked me if I wanted to be induced. He didn't. He would probably like, there's no need for it. You know, he never asked me if I wanted to be induced. Matthew was late. He was 3 days late. He never asked me if I wanted to be induced. And granted, I was 26, so that might be another reason why they were like, well, she's 26. We don't really need to induce her. You know, now if I was 40 and the kid kept being late, maybe then they would did it, but I digress. So I remember it happened. I was just sitting in bed and I was just like, it was funny, right? I watched all the prenatal movies and all that. I didn't go to prenatal class, but all those movies and all that stuff, or TV shows. There was a TV show on that was showing that. It's like everything I needed, I always had. So I would watch the TV show, right? I worked at Lazar Kaplan. It's a diamond company. I worked at Lazar Kaplan. That's crazy. I was working at Lazar Kaplan. And my husband at the time, he was working at Genevieve's. I think, it was called Genevieve's. And before Dwayne Reed swallowed everything up. And then Walgreens just ate that. Just fishes, just eating each other. But I digress. So yeah, he worked at Genevieve's, which was like far from our house. It was like, we lived in Flushing. And he worked in Bayside. He had a car and he drove. It was a red car and he drove. And I was sitting watching TV and stuff like that. And I was just like, because I told you on the 12th, I was crying. I was like, I don't want to be pregnant anymore. This is crazy. I don't want to do this anymore. And I was like, ow, what is that? And then I was just like, oh, is that it? Is that the contractions? Oh, that's not bad. You know, why were these women screaming? I don't understand. And it was late. It was at night. And I was just like, I wonder why. I don't understand why this is not that bad. And then I was just like, I called my doctor. And my doctor was like, okay, it might be Braxton Hicks. Meaning it might not be like real contractions. It might just be getting ready to be ready, or it might be contractions. So I think it's supposed to be like 5 minutes apart or something like that. So I was like, okay. And I was like, it didn't hurt. It was like, ow, it was like pressure. And I was like, it's not that bad. And then I was just like, okay. And then I was like, ow, kind of hurts. I was like, that kind of hurts. You know, I was like, shit, that kind of hurts. And then it started coming faster. And then I told my dad, because we lived with my father at the time. I was in my old room. My old room was huge. So I stayed in my room. And that's where Matthew stayed. So my dad had the smaller room in the apartment in Flushing. So it was a 2-bedroom apartment. We had 2 bathrooms. I had a bathroom in my room and there was a bathroom in the hallway. I always have a bathroom in my room, which is weird. But yeah. Queen status. But yeah, so I was like, we were Panamanians, so we yell out. I just yelled out, Dad, it's time. I watched that man walk into his pants. I swear to God. I was like, because you have to pass my room to go to the bathroom. So I was looking out the door because I heard him get up. And I watched him literally walk into his pants and go into the bathroom. I was like, wow, that's weird. But think about it. He's done this 3 times. He has 3 kids. So my sister, me, and my brother. So he has 3 kids. So he's like, okay, I'm a pro at this. I called Matt's father, and I was like, it's time. So he was like, I'll be right there. And I was like, okay. I did not realize that he really meant he will be right there. By the time I got dressed, because my bag was already packed. I'm always like that. My bag was been packed. So I got up and I was just like, okay. And I went into the living room. By the time I sat down on the recliner, I think it was a recliner. By the time I sat down, he was like leaning right next to me going, babe, are you okay? And I looked at him and I was like, how did you get here so fast? It's like at least a 45-minute drive. He must have had all green lights or just took all lights. So he got there. We drove to, the 3 of us got in the car. We drove to the hospital up the street. And the funny thing was, there was something in the road. like a bumper or something like that. And he hit it. And I was just like, oh, and I looked at him like, dude, what are you doing? You couldn't go around the bumper. But it's like, in hindsight, he was probably just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. That's probably all that was going through his head. He probably didn't even see the bumper. So, okay. So then I was just like, all right, whatever. And we got to the hospital, and it was like, I was uncomfortable. But it wasn't like, oh my God, my back, it wasn't nothing like that. And I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm like, I could do this. Why was everybody screaming? I don't know what happened when they took off my clothes and I put on that gown. Now that I'm thinking about it, there was probably trapped emotion on it, because, oh my God, that was the most pain I have ever felt in my entire life. I was like, because I was in the house and it was painful because it hit every so often. And I remember going, I'm not doing this shit again. I was like, this shit hurts. And I never curse in front of my father, like ever. I still don't. If I ever see him again, I still don't curse in front of my father. So I don't curse in front of my parents. That's just not what we do. So it's like, he was like, I know it hurt because you cursed. I was just like, oh my God. But then when I got to the hospital, it was like, it intensified. It was like something was trying to rip its way out of my body. And I understand that that's what's happening, but still, shit hurt. I was just like, oh my God, this is really painful. And that's when I was introduced to an epidural. What? First of all, it was the scariest thing in life. The lady was like, I need you to hold on to me. Because she told my ex-husband to move. She was like, move. You're not going to be able to hold her, and she cannot move. So, I still remember how it feels. So she told me to hold on to her. And she was like, you're not going to hurt me. Hold on to me. So I held on to, do I stop dropping them from the lady? So I was like, she was like, hold on to me. And I held on to her. And then there was another nurse that was behind me with this thin ass needle. And they pierced the needle or whatever into my spine, and they pumped epidural in it to numb the bottom part of my body, and then they pulled it out. This is probably why every so often I keep having to clear out the epidural stuff. Every level, there's a different clearing that I have to do. Hopefully it's going to be done soon. But it's like, because I can still feel it in my back. It's like it caused energy to shift. So now that I'm an energy healer, I know how to like clear it out and find the blockages, but it takes time. But I digress. So back to the story. So yeah, in like what felt like 5 minutes, I was just like, can't feel my legs. I was like punching my legs and stuff. He was like, stop hitting yourself. I was like, but look, I don't feel nothing. I should have been scared. Like real talk. I should have been scared because I couldn't feel my legs. I think I could move them though. I could move them. Probably that's why I wasn't scared, because I could move them. I just couldn't feel it. So I was just like, I can't feel my legs. And the pain, I didn't have any pain. And I was just like, oh, okay, that's cool. And the doctor was like, Matthew still didn't break the water. I'm sorry, I forgot to say that. My water never broke. So I was just like, oh, okay. So they were like, do. And I was sitting there, and I don't remember when I was admitted, but I think he was born around 7 something. I wasn't in labor long. I really wasn't. It was, and a lot of people get mad at me, but I'm like, no, it really wasn't long at all. So like I told you, Dr. Kim didn't play that shit. So Dr. Kim was like, okay, we're just going to break your water because he's not really moving around anymore. And we want to get him out. So I was like, okay, break it. The minute they broke that water, he started to slide right out. It was the weirdest stuff. It's kind of graphic. I'm so sorry. But it's like the minute they broke it, I was just like, oh. And he was like, don't push. And that's what they were like, don't push. And I was just like, okay, what are you talking? The funny thing is, I didn't have the urge to push. But it was, I guess, once the water comes out, he starts to slide down. The baby starts to slide down. So I'm assuming, I don't know. So they changed me over to a birthing room, right? I didn't have to get up. They just wheeled the bed, and modern technology is crazy. So, and I had really good insurance for all 3 kids. But yeah, so I was in the birthing room and he was just like, okay, we're having an issue. And I was saying, I'm telling you how I heard it. That's not how he said it. He was like, this kid doesn't want to come out. He's going up instead of out. It was kind of like Matthew was like, no, wait, hold on. I'm not ready yet. I don't want to go. So he was going up the birth canal instead of coming down. And if he kept going up, he was going to damage my organs. So the Dr. Kim was like, you're going to have to push. And I was like, okay. So I was pushing, and Matthew was pushing against me, trying to go up. So Dr. Kim had to kind of push on my stomach to push him out. He had to be forced out of my stomach. And it was hilarious. He had to be forced out. And Dr. Kim was just like, it hurt because I was like, get off me. You're hurting me. I remember saying that because it hurt. He was literally had to push Matthew out because Matthew was not going the way that everybody else wanted him to go. And I am really starting to believe the way you were born is how you are in life. And it's crazy. It's funny. But yeah, so he finally came out, and he came out with an attitude. He came out with an attitude because when they gave him to me, right? They gave him to me and he was still covered in blood. It wasn't like, oh, they dried him and wrapped him. No, they gave him to me right out of my stomach because they wanted to cut the cord. So I was holding him, right? And I keep telling everybody this is exactly what happened. I wasn't hallucinating. I was holding him, and I was holding him with my I was just a video. I was holding him with my elbows out, and my hand was touching my shoulder. So it was kind of like it was like if you carried a sack of rice and you have to hold it. That's what I was doing. He started slipping, and I was just like, shit. And I grabbed onto and I clenched onto him because I couldn't yell because no one was hearing me, because I think everybody was enthralled with Juan cutting the cord. Juan wasn't paying attention. And I kept calling for him, and I was like, he's slipping. And then he finally heard me. He goes, what? I was like, he's slipping. And I started screaming. The only thing I could think of while everybody was distracted, the only thing I kept thinking of, I will not let this kid fall on the goddamn ground. This kid will not fall on the ground. This kid will not fall. And I've been doing that ever since with all of them. There is nothing. If I have to hold you until you're blue, you are not going to drop on this ground and get hurt, because he would have died. He was a newborn who falls on the floor. You know, he's a newborn. He would have been so damaged. And I was just like, and once they finally realized what was happening, they were like, let him go, because I wouldn't let him go. And they were like, let him go. And I was just like, okay. And I finally let him go. And that's literally what's happening today. It's like, I held on to him so tight. Now I have to let him go. And it's like crazy. It's like crazy. But that's Matthew's origin story. And it was funny. Remember I told you he came out with an attitude? You know how I know he came out with an attitude? One of the attending doctors that was helping, she goes to me, look what your baby did to me. She was covered in blood. She was like just covered head to toe in blood. It was kind of like Matthew was like, fuck you. You want me to come out? Splash, bitch. Splash, splash, bitch, splash. And it was crazy. That's what happened. But yeah, that's his origin story, and obviously mine as well. But yeah, he's a big boy now. He's a grown-ass man. And I did a good job. I know I did a good job, because I gave him my all and I never dropped him. I might have let him fall because he had to, but I never dropped him. He was not going to get dropped. All right, that is my heart for today. Thanks for hanging out with me and listening to my origin stories and how things started and where am I now? Why do I do so many things? And, before I go, that was a long ass pause. I hate that air. That was a long ass pause. But before I go, especially if you made it to this far, this far, if you made it this far, you deserve a reward. So what I want you to know is life is what you decide it's going to be. And when you realize it's not going to always seem fun, it's not going to always seem fun. But if you see that it's always like struggle and sadness and there's no happiness, you need to recalibrate. You need to look at who's around you. You need to look at what you're doing. You need to make sure that you are not keeping yourself in a state of sadness or disappointment or despair or shame for whatever reason. Like I told you, I was on welfare twice. Granted, I make six figures now, but that I didn't wake up here. This was grit. Like, this was grit. There's a reason why I'm missing teeth, because I realized, and I'm happy I realized it before it was too late. Sadness decays your body. Your body will start to decay with sadness, despair, doubt. Those things, that energy decays your bones. It rots your organs. Energy clearing is important. And I am happy that, because once I started doing that, everything is starting to reverse and go back to its original default programming. That's what I'm watching it happen. And I'm the guinea pig. Like I told you, I'm not going to tell you to do something I don't do, and I want you to understand muscle testing is where it starts. And I'm going to be doing a class on muscle testing today. Tune in. I love you guys. Stay up. Stay blessed. And I'm out.